You haven't been paying your taxes. You owe us money. Pay up, buddy. Oh, really now? Prove it. Apple avoids paying billions in tax, and yet nobody has been imprisoned. Because whilst every other company was busy trying to make money, Apple was busy making sure nobody could touch theirs. Hey, you! Get away from my money! They didn't go hide on some shady Caribbean island. They also didn't break the law either. They showed there's levels to this game and rewrote the rules on how to play it. And by the time anyone figured out what was happening, well, billions were already gone. Today, we'll be talking about how you pay more in taxes than Apple. Apple is the most valuable company in human history. At its peak, it was worth over $3 trillion. That's more than the entire GDP of France, every baguette and croissant included. Now, a company making that kind of money should be paying eye-watering amounts of taxes. US corporate tax rate is 21%, most of Europe sits between 20 and 30%. So how much did Apple pay? 0.005%. For reference, a US worker on federal minimum wage pays around 10%. At 0.005% tax, if you earned $100,000, you'd pay the government $5. You pay more tax on a takeaway pizza. How do they do it? Well, I say let's follow the money. Say you buy an iPhone in Germany. Simple transaction, right? Customer pays, Germany takes its cut in taxes, everyone goes home. Except that's not what happens. The money goes on a little trip. That sale never gets registered in Germany at all. It gets logged in Ireland. Registered to a little company Apple set up there called Apple Sales International. On paper, it's an Irish company, but Apple argued to the Irish authorities that it was managed and controlled from California. Under Irish law at the time, if your company is managed abroad, you're not an Irish tax resident. Meanwhile, in America, if you're a foreign company, the IRS thinks you're paying taxes elsewhere. Apple created a company that was a tax resident of literally nowhere on Earth. A financial ghost floating in the space between two tax systems, paying almost nothing to either. When the US Senate investigated this in 2013, Apple had recorded $74 billion in tax-free income over just 4 years. So they're not hiding the money. They're just shielding it. Smart, right? But this still isn't enough for Apple. When you buy that iPhone in Germany, remember, the sale is registered in Ireland, yes, but Apple can't just transfer the money that easily across to their bank accounts. This is because Apple plays with multiple entities, the main parent company being Apple Sales International. It holds all the legal rights to Apple's property across Europe. The software, the patents, all of it. So when Apple sell their own products, the entities involved have to pay for the right to use them, ultimately creating royalty fees they need to pay to themselves. But these royalty fees fall under income, which can and will get taxed. They now need to solve this problem they've created for themselves. So the money now gets sent on a little trip to the Netherlands for the amazing Dutch washing machines so we can clean this cash off tax. Why Netherlands? It's because they have a very generous set of tax rules that solve for royalty payments. Their laws allow money made from intellectual property rights like software patents to pass through Dutch entities with almost zero tax. The money route basically goes like this. They sell products, like in Germany. They book the profits, the sale, in Ireland with the main company, Apple Sales International, They then route royalty payments through a Dutch Apple entity, and then they send the money back to Ireland where it's tax-free. But here's where the story stops being, oh, Apple is so clever, and gets scandalous. Apple didn't just stumble into a convenient tax loophole. No. Ireland actually offered to help them build it. Oh, laddie, looky here at this tax hole. Excuse my bad Irish accent. But when the European Commission found out Apple was only paying 0.05% tax, they opened a full-on investigation. It was found that Ireland had negotiated a special tax deal with Apple, and Ireland was accused of granting Apple illegal state aid. Limitations were imposed, and Apple was then fined $13 billion by the EU Commission to pay to the Irish government. And guess who appealed this very decision? The Irish government itself. Ireland didn't want Apple's money, the $13 billion they were fined. They much rather wanted to keep Apple happy, because despite small taxes, Apple contributed to the Irish economy in other ways. Apple was the largest private employer in the country, offering thousands of jobs. They helped with investments in the local infrastructure and helped bring other companies like Microsoft and Google to work in Ireland, in turn creating more jobs and a positive growth spiral. But regardless, Apple was forced to pay the $13 billion, and then Ireland was forced to increase their taxation percent. Our story should technically end here, right? Big corporate giant forced to pay, yay. But you didn't think Apple was going down that easy, right? So what are they doing right now? Within months, Apple had restructured into something new, something the EU hadn't even thought to look at yet. Ireland also didn't just give up either. Irish officials and the Apple team worked on a new structure together. What was their plan? Ireland rewrote its tax laws to allow 100% of intellectual property development costs to be deductible from one's taxes. Apple then moved all of its intellectual property, the iPhone software, iOS, every patent, onto the books of its Irish subsidiary company, and then declared that this intellectual property had cost $335 billion to develop. That's $335 billion that could now be written off against tax, and Apple can run off with it. And with that, all the years the EU had spent fighting the old scheme, building a case, winning a ruling, all gone. All of it. So who's the villain here? Apple? They didn't break a single law. Ireland? They're just a small country trying to survive on the edge of Europe. The EU? They spent years and enormous resources fighting a smart loophole. What's certain is that all of this feels slimy, like somehow someone's cheating and getting away with it. And while you're watching this video, it's still happening.